delighted to invite you to our first prompt to publication interview. Joining me today is Susannah MacDonald. Her lovely book, The Echoes from a Passage of Time, has just been published, and Susannah is going to tell us a bit more about her experience.
Oh, very well. All right, well, this book was actually published in 2019. I have the sequel coming out, should be this year. At the moment, I'm in the process of doing the very final draft. Well, they've done the draft, but they've sent it back to me for final checking, so I'm doing that. And this book is what I call esoteric futuristic fiction. So it's set between the Earth plane and a fictional other plane, and the protagonist is very unusual among his people because he's a dancer, and that's all he cares about. It's the only thing. And he finds his way over to Earth, where he meets up with a composer and dances. And so it goes on from there. So within it is a pandemic, or hints of a pandemic on Earth. So when I wrote this, the conversation between the protagonist and the Earthman, he's an Australian. This is where Marcus, the protagonist, arrived, and he found that there had been these pandemics where vast swathes of land wiped out, people died, and I wrote this all 5 years ago, and so I didn't edit anything out. I just kept it nice and clean. And then later on in the book, there's another pandemic. When he gets back home, he has to return to his home plane, and finds that something else has broken out. And this one, unusually, is the hint that somebody introduced the disease, deliberately came over from the Earth plane with this disease and introduced it, the baddie who gets killed. So anyway, that's the book. And the sequel, which is coming out, follows on the adventures of this protagonist's son and his daughter, which is another story. So that's the book in a nutshell. It's got a strong bent for the esoteric, and also people who are musicians or artists of any kind will like it, and they do because of the references to music and art.
Beautiful,
so
yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
A matter of life imitating art, or art imitating life.
Oh yes, very much so. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so as we are speaking about art and all things beautiful, I do know, yeah, so you've been on the 12 Short Story site, I think, since the beginning, around 2017, and since then you and I have become Facebook friends. So
we have.
Yes, so often I see quite a lot of your art coming around and stuff. So just tell us a bit more, just, outside of the writing, what influences your writing, who are you? Day job wise, what did you do, what do you do, all kinds of fun stuff like that.
Okay, right. Well, as far as my work's concerned, I started life as a primary school teacher, majoring in art and music. When I was at uni, I studied those two disciplines, and have done quite a bit of performing myself, just in very, very small groups. My particular interest is the Renaissance and the Baroque, and I have a fascination with mythology and anything that goes along with it. And then after teaching, I'd always gone on painting, and I felt sort of kind of blocked, felt that I wasn't painting what I wanted to paint. And then I met my husband. Well, I had a husband before, but anyway, I met my husband, and he's a graphic artist and also extremely spiritual. And he took one look at my work and said, wow, I think I can use you for illustration work. So I went on to do quite a bit of that. And in the meantime, worked on my own practice. And then I got all the commissions doing work, which was, call them visionary portraits, if you like. People get a portrait and they'd want something else in it. So people had their cats and dogs and hairy beasties, but also things in the background, which I didn't know about. But, when you're an artist, as you know, you receive things in your head, so you just put them in. So I did that. So I was doing that, and also teaching. I'd gone back to teaching music. So I was teaching flutes, and then also had a job working at tertiary institution as a teacher aide. Would take notes for students, and my husband was doing the same work, and we had the time of our lives. We loved it, but then we got to the point where we thought we wanted to get our Bachelor of Fine Arts. So 10 years ago, or 11 years ago now, we went back to get a degree. So we did that, and that's very, very important because I was able to draw on this fascination for music, for mythology, seismology, all those amazing things. And I wondered which influences what. Does the earth movements and what go on influence mythology, or does mythology and human consciousness create that itself? So I was playing around with that idea for 2 years. And so after the degree, and it was a painting degree, so I've got lots of paintings still about, and I'm still working on that in the over the past, well, it's the past 10 years now, since graduation almost, and I've been working on that theme. And during the process of the academic writing, what I found was the fictional writing that I was doing, that tended to, I used to jiggle around with it, and I tended to find myself repeating myself, doing things like that. And with the academic writing, it taught me how to condense ideas, to be clear about things. And so the book that I wrote came out of a short story that I'd, well, let's put it this way, a friend was doing an anthology of science fiction. She wanted something, short stories. So I presented this. I was still doing the degree, and it didn't go to publication because they didn't have enough authors. But then after that, I decided I was going to turn it into a book. And so what with the painting practice still going on and the writing, I ended up getting the whole book written, as well as teaching art and still teaching music. So I've been kind of busy. It's been an amazing roller coaster. And then, of course, I say the book came out in 2019, and sequel was written already, and so on. So that's it in a nutshell.
Oh, that's fantastic. Do you find that you can like kind of individualize your creative pursuits, or do they all influence each other? Like when you set out with an idea, do you specifically know it's going to be a painting, or is it going to be a story, or what? How do they manifest?
Right. Well, there's current themes that are running through it. I can't get away from painting and drawing trees, forests, and there's a lot of allusions to, well, passageways. You know, so many photos on my computer that I've taken when out for walks, and the trees, and you get this lovely looking thing in the distance. And of course, that's this time passage thing. And I find that I don't do it on purpose, but it's just, I think we all have themes and things that are at the back of our minds that we're actualizing. And I think that's what's happened with this. So, well, I say Christmas time, I did a series of paintings of quite large watercolors, paintings that I did based on a nature reserve not far from us, and just developing that. So at the moment, that's what I'm doing, or have been doing. So does that kind of answer the question?
I think it does. Yeah, I like your
I think
everything.
so. Yeah.
Like you said, yeah, there are passages everywhere. So I think it's lovely if you can identify a theme and work on strengthening that. So that's wonderful.
Yes,
Great.
it sort of comes through. It's the same in poetry. You know, I find that if I'm writing poetry, there's usually a spiritual underlying thing, and that just seems to keep popping through. I remember a very interesting quote by Mozart, and he said that the meaning of music is found between the notes. And I jumped up and down and said, yay, because some years before I set up a small blog and called it Between Words. And I said that the meaning of poetry is found between the words. So I think it's quite common to a lot of artists of all genres and disciplines, that's the case. You know, you compose, you write, you dance, but in between that, meaning. I hope that's clear. Does that sort of make sense?
It definitely makes a lot of sense. Yeah, no, it's interesting looking back, you know, after a few years of writing, going back through your work, and even though your stories seem so diverse, like, I mean, I know with my own work, I don't tend to stick to a genre. I hop through between too many things, but it's the themes that remain the same. So even if the stories go in all different directions and different styles and everything, it seems to keep coming back to the same things.
Well, it does. Yeah, yeah. You can't help it.
No, you can't. Yeah.
Resolutions.
Every time I'm so determined to do something different, and then even if it's a different style or genre, I'm like, no, you've actually just you said the same thing again. So it's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Clearly, I should be getting the message by now. So,
oh,
tell me a little
lovely.
bit. What do you like reading?
Oh, right. Well, I read an awful lot of nonfiction, biographies, and it's usually about artists, composers. But I also read really good fiction, say people like Margaret Atwood and
Heaven.
brilliant,
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. And New Zealand writers like Janet Frame and Catherine Mansfield. And then I've just been reading some historic writing. One book by Disraeli, which is very interesting because I'm interested in politics, historic politics. It's a fictional book, but at the same time, it's got background of early 19th century British, well, generally European, probably, politics. And it's pretty fascinating in between the story and the narrative. And then I went back to Edgar Allan Poe, who I hadn't touched for years, absolutely years. And he's so good. His English is so rich and fascinating. So generally, I'd say I read people whose English is absolutely beautiful, and can't think of anything at the moment. Oh, I'm reading a fascinating book of fiction at the moment. I can't remember the author's name offhand, but it's about a child going between the imaginary world and the real world. And I found that was interesting because it was a book that jumped out at me in the op shop. So I thought, all right, $2, I'll have this.
Here we go.
And there we go again, in between forms, in between states of existence, that sort of thing. And there's a lot of that goes on. And I unwittingly pick up these books, but and they're no accidents, of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, another book I'm reading at the moment. Oh, hang on, where is it? Just a sec. It's absolutely fascinating. It's called Mr. Rawlinson's England. And it's Rawlinson, and the story, the book actually is written by a chap called Robert Southey, talking about England in the, say, 1800s, early 1800s, late 1700s. It's absolutely amazing. The English is beautiful. It's just superb. And finding words that are still being used nowadays popping up in this narrative. And all the descriptions and all the things about the good old days, which weren't. I just can't put it down. It's fabulous. Plus the artwork. So that's an example.
Lovely. Yeah. That sounds fascinating. Can you tell us a little bit about your publishing journey? How did you go about it? What happened? What decisions did you have to make?
Well, it was actually one of those funny things. I sent the draft of the book that got published to couple of publishers, and I thought nothing of it. This was 2017, so at the beginning of the year. And then I got a fat envelope in the post with a contract from the Austin Macaulay company, and they were offering me a contract and wanted to publish my book. And so it was just one of those things that I said yes, and I went ahead with it and did it. And it's just worked. I found them good to work with, and it just happened, flowed along. And after this one went to publication, I asked them if they wanted the sequel. Yes, please. Sent me another contract. And so it went on like that. So it wasn't one of those things where I had to send away to a whole lot of people and get lots of rejects. A couple of the ones I sent to, they didn't even send me an email to say they'd got it. No, thank you. So really, it's actually fallen into place.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It is. It's. I thought, well, maybe it's supposed to be. Yeah.
No, that's wonderful. No, congratulations. Tell me a little bit. Okay, so there's obviously a lot of debate in the world of like kind of what do we consider publishing success and what literary success or whatever. What in terms of what would you consider a literary success or a publishing success from your standpoint at this stage?
Well, I have thought about that in the past, and I think it's simply being able to get whatever's been inside of you out there, pushed into shape, perfected, and out on the shelves. I sort of think yes, it'd be nice to get lots of royalties, and I think we all do. But of course, none of us, we know that we don't do it for money, otherwise nobody would do anything decent. So I think, yeah, I think it's just simply knowing that I've actually got to the end of a journey, if you like, and got it out there. And I've got this pile of paper all bound up in a cover to prove it. I think that's probably it in a nutshell.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's always interesting when you speak to writers. Some of them say things like, "Oh no, this wasn't as good," or "this didn't work for me," and stuff. And you're sitting like, if you look at what you've done, it's actually pretty awesome. So it's lovely that you are excited about it and aware of what you've done. So that's wonderful.
Yes, it is. It's just a feeling that it was supposed to be. I was quite lucky actually, because my grand's brother is a published writer in England. He's a writer of historic theatre, things like that. And he gave me my first critique when I was a 12-year-old. I wrote a funny story for a children's page in a magazine, New Zealand Woman's Weekly, silly thing. But anyway, Gran was so happy, she sent it off to Uncle Morris in London. And he gave me my first critique, which was neat. And one of the things he said was echoed by a fellow writer on another site that I was writing before I came across your one, WeBook. Yeah, and I wrote that actually got me off fiddling around and not doing anything much to actually writing, because I had challenges all the time. I thought, all right, I'll do that. So I sent stuff off. Yeah, and one of my fellow writers made the same positive comment about my writing. So it's been actually, really neat. I've really enjoyed it. Love it.
we all like a cheerleader, so that's good.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Was there a part of the book that was particularly hard to write? Was there a scene that you struggled with more than others, or how did you find the process in general?
Generally very smooth. When I was doing the draft after draft after draft and editing till the cows come home, if I found something was a bit bland, then I'd bolster it up or filled it up. But I couldn't say I had any difficulties. There wasn't any time when I struggled with it, if you like. Not like academic writing, where you scratch your head. But no, it went very smoothly. Same with the sea. I just sort of bolstered it up and did the usual things that we do, using different words. Oh, one of the things I always had to check was not using the same word in the same too many times in a paragraph and things like that, and reaching for the thesaurus and all that kind of thing. So does that sort of answer the question? Does it make sense?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Was there anything that didn't make it into the book, and why?
Oh no, there wasn't. The whole thing just went in, and there wasn't anything at the end when I thought, oh, I should have done this or I should have done that. The narrative kind of unfolded in front of me. And I've heard other people say that just, you start writing and the images pop up and pop up, and you just keep on writing. Same with the dialogue. It comes out, and I found the characters all spoke differently. So no problem. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's interesting to see we're doing the 52 scenes challenge now. So every time, the week starts and you're like, oh, what am I going to write this week? I don't know. And yet if you just go and listen to your characters, just see what you've put in place.
Yes.
They'll do their work if you do your work. So that's
oh yeah,
that's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll have to do that next year.
Oh, it's such fun. We're having lots of fun.
It is. It was like your wonderful lockdown daily challenge.
Oh, yes. No.
I loved that. That was so good.
I've got another little daily challenge planned. It's a shorty, but you'll hear from it soon. Just to keep us busy. I've decided we've found our stride now. We're going with a year. We can take on a little bit more. So, okay, just as a last question, do you have any advice for us, for writers, anyone, literary journals you'd recommend, anything that you could tell us what made you complete a 12 short story experience? What can you tell a beginner?
Well, I would say to anybody to get it out of your head that you can't do it. Just start writing, not sit there and criticize every line you write. Just get a dump down. And I've got a dump story which I could share. It was when I was taking notes for a dyslexic student doing creative writing. And it was at the tertiary institution. And they were doing poetry that day. I was just stepping in for someone. And because I'd taken all the notes about the procedure, the tutor says, all right, everybody, write your poetry. I went, oh, I'll do that. So I did a dump. So, and I waited for the tutor, and he listened to what the other students said. And he said, right, now join up your dump of words. So I did that. And I'd say the same thing for people. That's how you often will start. You have to do something. It kicks you off, and you do your dump. Don't criticize it too much, just keep writing. And if you get something that really gels with you, then you can spend time doing some editing of your own. And it is a good idea. I haven't got any, say, literary journals I could recommend, but I'm sure anybody listening to this will know of something where they live that they can join. I belong to the New Zealand Society of Authors, and they have all sorts of things which I never get to go to because I'm too busy. But it's things like that which are really helpful. And you can enter competitions. That's the other thing, you have these different places have competitions, and submit your work to that. So I think, and of course, 12 short stories. I have a ball every month. Prompt comes up, I think, oh, goody. So that's a fantastic thing to do, and I've really, really enjoyed it. And I find it helpful because it does make me more critical of my own work in a good way.
Hope it's a good way.
It's very good, yes. And I get lots of good feedback. And what you say to people about being kind is incredibly important, because it means, of course, people can only say what you might like to improve, or I like this, but try this, rather than say, oh, this is a heap of rubbish or anything awful like that. And it's just, it's a very good way to be, because people, they're not being deluded, but at the same time, they're not being criticized. So they feel encouraged to keep going. But I love 12 short stories. I think it's great.
No, we're all there to learn. Yeah, we're all there to learn. So it's very important. So
it's on. Oh, that's the other thing. Of course, it's an ongoing thing. And one of the things I say to my small students and adults, because I teach watercolor as well to adults, is support each other. Don't criticize your work, and just keep going.
Good.
And it's really, really important.
Cool. I like just keep going. Let's just get it on the page and do what you have to do. So,
oh, absolutely. Yes, totally.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for joining us, Susannah. I really appreciate it. I wish you the best of luck with your current book and with your new book coming out. It's so exciting.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you for spending this time with us. That was fantastic.
Oh, most enjoyable. Lovely to chat.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks, Susannah.
Okay, bye.